Welcome to College Town Talk. I'm Shan Stout.
And I'm Jonathan Frank.
Now, Jonathan, have you ever been the first person in your family to achieve something?
In fact, Shan, I'm the first person in my family to be in their mid 30s and raising a dog instead of children. Does that count?
Well, absolutely, sort of. Not exactly where I was going, but sure. But did you know what I'm getting at is about 20% of students today at Tennessee Tech are actually the first person in their family to attend college. Now, today we're going to hear from Dr. Harry Ingle, Tennessee Tech's Executive Director for Student Affairs, and he's going to tell us about how the university is working to serve this important student population.
That's going to be a great interview. And then we're also going to be hearing from one of our mutual friends and someone in your line of work, Shan, Andrea Kruszka, the Assistant Director of Tennessee Tech's Center for Rural Innovation.
Now, Andrea takes the party with her wherever she goes. So if you know her, you know that's true. She is beloved by so many of our tourism friends across the Upper Cumberland, and she's a true Jane of all trades, from photography to volunteerism. And she also has radio ventures on her resume. She's going to tell us about some of her other side hustles that are also keeping her busy.
So, Shan, here's my Andrea Kruszka story. When we were launching this podcast last year, it was a heavy lift. You put it out there. You wonder if people are going to like it, if they're going to listen to it. I was in TJ Maxx and ran into Andrea, and she said she listened to our interview with Dr. Rob and Mayor Wheaton, and she liked it. And it was so encouraging. I've been a fan of hers ever since.
Well, Andrea is such a cheerleader and she makes us all feel good about ourselves, but you're also pretty easy to please.
I can be bought with compliments, Shan.
Well, I know we both can think of many compliments to describe today's guest, so let's get right to our interview. Up first, it's our conversation with Tennessee Tech's Executive Director for Student Affairs, Dr. Harry Ingle.
Welcome back to College Town Talk. We are now joined by a familiar face on Tennessee Tech's campus and a proud alumnus who has served the university for more than 15 years, Dr. Harry Ingle. Today, students and faculty know Dr. Ingle as the university's new Executive Director of Student Affairs and head of the newly minted Office of First Generation Student Success. But he's also been an admissions counselor, an adjunct instructor, the director of diversity, recruitment, and student success for the College of Engineering, and the past director of the college's Clay N. Hickson Student Success Center. Outside of his service to Tech, Dr. Ingle has served as executive treasurer for IMPACT Cookeville, as vice president for the Putnam County Library Board of Trustees, and as dean of counselors for Tennessee American Legion Boys State, just to name a few. Dr. Ingle, welcome to College Town Talk.
Thanks so much for having me.
I want to start by asking you about your new role related to first-generation student success. Clearly, this has been something that the university's made a big priority, and for our listeners who don't know, I understand Tennessee Tech is now part of this new membership class of First Gen Forward, previously the Center for First-Generation Student Success, which is all about supporting first-generation students in their higher ed journey. And now Student Affairs has dedicated an office to that very purpose as well, with you at the helm. So why has it been so important to you that Tennessee Tech reach those students? And what are some of the recurring questions or unique needs that you find with that student population?
Yeah, so as you said, we are very excited to be a part of the First Gen Forward network as a new member to this great organization. And so first, here at Tennessee Tech, we define our first generation college students as students whose parents did not graduate with a four-year college degree. So that's our definition here at Tennessee Tech. And so what we want to do is really connect with those students. And so that's what we've started to do. We've started connecting with these students, all of our incoming students, as well as reaching out to our continuing students. And so it's really important, firstly, just to connect, to find out the needs of our students. And so as I've done that in this new role, really just since the beginning of August, as when we joined this network and began this work, we know, actually even before reaching out, we know that the data. So we know that there's gaps. We know that first generation students don't complete their degrees at as high of a rate as students that are not first gen, as well as uh, uh, those students are facing some challenges. And so, connecting with the students so far has been very insightful to help us to identify some of those things that they're needing help with. So we know, the students, just from connecting with them, that they are facing financial challenges, some food insecurity issues, as well as just additional challenges navigating materials for courses, academic assistance, things of that such, just to name a few so far.
Now, let's talk more about your journey here at Tennessee Tech. When you first started working here all those years ago, did you see yourself in this role today? Was that even a thing? And for listeners who may be thinking about how they can climb the ladder in their workplace, I'd like you to talk about the decisions you made that helped you get to where you are now. I mean, this has been a journey, and I know that I'm not the only one interested to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first came to higher education, I didn't see myself necessarily in this role specifically, but really what attracted me was the ability to be able to impact students. I enjoyed working with students as an advisor for my fraternity initially, and then wanted to come back in a full-time capacity where I would be able to work with students here at Tech and be able to again impact them as people had done that for me. And so yeah, back in the day, so to speak, I started here in the admissions office as a recruiter. So I was out on the road, across the entire state, out of state, representing the university, speaking with families and people about the institution. And so from doing that and working with closely with some mentors in the admissions office, Mr. Jim Gray, Dr. Robert Hodum, they really sort of took me under their wing and mentored me in higher education and in recruitment, and gave me some options and counseled me on what I needed to do to sort of to move forward. And so under their wing, so to speak, mentorship is important. And so under their wing, I knew that education, obtaining higher degrees would be something that I would need to do. And so that's what I set out to do. So while working full time as admissions counselor and traveling, as I said, I began my master's. And so I obtained my master's within about 2 years. Again, while working, starting a young family, and after that point of finishing my master's, I actually began teaching as an adjunct, and so I was able to interact and engage with students in a different way. So those students that I had recruited to come into the institution, actually, had them in my classes, and so I got to learn how to teach, but I got to learn, how to interact and engage students in a different way in their actual educational journey. So it's been really interesting and very rewarding being able to do that. And so after that, starting to teach and completing my master's, I jumped right into my doctoral studies. And so learning a lot throughout that process. I also did continue teaching while I was doing that and working full time, as I said, and all those things, and stopped traveling as much. So that helped quite a bit to be able to focus on family as well as my studies. And so something that I found that was helpful was that I arranged my doctoral research around my job. So working with the College of Engineering, all of my background with recruitment, I was able to, in my coursework, I was able to focus my research areas and research articles on things that would ultimately go into my dissertation. So those are the decisions that got me here.
So, like we were just discussing, a lot of different roles that you've held over the years. Prior to your new role in student affairs, I know you had served as Director of Diversity, Recruitment, and Student Success in the College of Engineering. So I know that cultivating a diverse campus where everybody's welcome is something that matters to you, as it does to so many of us. And our fall census numbers show that Tech is continuing to make gains when it comes to diversity. Roughly 21% of students are now students of color. Certainly that represents progress from even just a couple of years ago. And as we've said, you've been at Tech a long time now. So how have you seen the university take steps in the right direction over all of those years? And what do you think has helped move the ball forward?
Yeah, so yeah, during my time, even as a student and then coming back and working here, as you said, all these years, I've seen the university take right steps in a couple different ways, really starting with the leadership. And so if I always tell my students to, as they're thinking about their next step after tech, I always encourage them to look at the top leadership, look to see what the leadership looks like. Take a look at the mission, the vision, look at the values of that organization that you wish to join, and see if that aligns with maybe you or maybe what you aspire to do. And so I think Tennessee Tech from over the last 20 years, I think that's really what's happened here. So the leadership, if you look at our president's cabinet, if you look up just the makeup, our president's cabinet is comprised of diverse people from various academic disciplines and backgrounds. And so to me, that's highly valuable, or really, I guess you could say invaluable, right? I mean, all of that experience that we have from our leadership at the institution and top administration, as well as you look at across the different academic disciplines. And so really I think the leadership to me has helped to move the ball forward, as well as I would say the leadership and its connectivity to starting the strategic plan. So the Tech Tomorrow plan, I think, has been a part of that since I've been here, as well as some work groups around the Tech Tomorrow plan. And so you'll find that diversity is embedded within that, and that plan provides us direction and tactics to address the various different areas of diversity. And so that's been very helpful in moving the needle forward in this time, as well as I would say that there's been some things institutionalized. There's a newer university office, if people aren't aware. I think you have had my colleague, Dr. Rob Owens, on. And so there's a new focus with the Office of Access, Belongingness, and Community Outreach. And so to me, when things become institutionalized, it shows a long-term commitment to acknowledging the importance or the value of something, understanding and learning more about that, and then continuously working to improve processes, the learning of that or outcomes related to that area. So, for example, Office of Access, Belongingness, and Community Outreach, there's a focus there. There's going to be continued resources there. There's no Office of First Generation Student Success. There's a focus there. It's a prioritization. There's importance. There's value there, right? There's an Office of Research, right? There's value there, right? There's resource allocation, all of those things. And so to me, when that becomes institutionalized as an office, that shows a long-term commitment to that. And so, and all of this couldn't be possible without all of our people. Like I said, so leadership, but also the people, our tech admin, like I said, but also faculty and staff. So everyone is also committed. But really, to me, it's really the leadership and everyone coming together to work with the Tech Tomorrow plan.
Now, Dr. Ingle, I don't know how, but as we said in the introduction, outside of your work at Tech, you've somehow found time to serve causes like IMPACT Cookeville, Boys State, and of course our Putnam County Library, all important causes. Why has it been important to you to give back in those particular ways? And I'm going to ask this question. Of all the volunteer projects you take on, what have you found most rewarding? I know that's a loaded question because we're asking you to choose.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background. So I grew up in Nashville, and so at the time that I was coming up, I served on a lot of different. I was very involved in the community. So growing up, I was involved, and so I really think that has obviously carried forward. So when I was in my youth, I served on a mayoral youth council. I participated in Scouts my entire life. I'm actually an Eagle Scout as well. I was active in my church, played sports, there were some specific programs for youth to help with public speaking and interviews and ACT prep, collegiate prep and things like that. So I was very involved with volunteerism and just giving back. And so I think that it's just always made sense to me. It's always made sense that if you're going to live, in a community, and you're going to be a part of it, that you would add value back to the community. So, being in the community, if you are there, there's likely things being added to you while you are there. So there's value being added. So why not add value back? It just makes sense. Why would I not do that? And so that's kind of how I got to to where I am, right? Working with all these different organizations. And so I think it's really just sort of the right place at the right time in terms of with IMPACT Cookeville. If I had to choose one, I would say IMPACT Cookeville for sure. Just being a part of that, the board with that organization since its inception, I've learned a tremendous amount of about everything of how to start a 501c3, about bylaws, and but most importantly, I've learned a lot about our community here. I've been able to work with a lot of our local leadership, and so it's really been really valuable for me. So I'm just actually, just honored to be able to again be able to add value back, to be able to assist our community, that where I live, my family lives, and so that's sort of how I got here. I would pick IMPACT Cookeville, but I would say that actually led me to the library. So that's how I got involved with the library, was through IMPACT Cookeville. The library board had reached out about unexpired term, and so that's what got me to the library. And so really love what the being a part of the library board and all of the great things that we're doing here in Upper Cumberland.
Jonathan, you see what he did there? He didn't really pick a favorite. He kind of segued them all together, knitted them together into a very smooth answer. So respect.
Thank you, thank you.
Well,
it's the truth too. It's how it happened.
when you're as involved as Dr. Ingle, it's probably very hard to choose just one cause. But Dr. Ingle, we like to end each interview with the same question, and that is, what is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
Yeah, again, so being an alumnus of the institution, Tennessee Tech, I would say, has impacted my life the greatest through relationships. I've been able to build a lot of relationships as a student, after being a student. So the relationships I have been able to build, I really learned how to really build them well here. So I tell students all the time that that really the secret to life is building great, healthy relationships. And so Tennessee Tech creates a great atmosphere and a great environment to do that. I met my wife here, during college, and so that's a really obviously a great relationship. And so Tech provided that environment, as well as a lot of great lifelong friendships have been made since, again, I've been connected to Tennessee Tech University.
Well, Shan and I are keeping a mental checklist account of everybody that's credited Tech for meeting their spouse, because there have been quite a few. So we can add another one to the list, Shan.
Absolutely. Tech may need some sort of app like Match.com. At Upper Cumberland, and we are finding that out more and more. Dr. Ingle, thank you so much for being our guest today on College Town Talk.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Welcome back to College Town Talk. Now, if you're a fan of the show Parks and Rec, keep it parked here, because today's guest is truly the Leslie Knope of Cookeville. Today, we're talking with Andrea Kruszka, the Assistant Director of Tennessee Tech's Center for Rural Innovation. I know that sounds fancy, and there's a lot going on with her job, but there she helps lead the university's Rural Reimagined Grand Challenge, which this provides no-cost tourism projects, branding assets, economic impact studies, and various other supports to businesses and communities in the state's rural, distressed, and at-risk counties. And I have seen the impact of her work with the small businesses that are around us here at the Visitors Bureau. Now, that's enough to keep anyone busy, but on top of that, Andrea is also a popular local nature photographer, a board member for the nonprofit Helping Hands of Putnam County, and she's also a former local radio personality. No surprise there, because she is full of personality. She is also a Tennessee Tech graduate student and the co-founder of Art Love. Now, this is a collective of local artists using their work to make a difference in the community. So you can see why we love Andrea. Now, for those reasons and more, Cookeville Lifestyle named her 2023 Mover and Shaker, calling her everyone's hot girl with a passion for making an impact on quality of life regionally and statewide. But here at Tennessee Tech, we get to call her ours. Andrea, welcome to College Town Talk.
Well, I think you just said everything about me that I possibly could have said. So are we done now?
That's a wrap. Now, Andrea, we have so much that we want to ask you about today. But first, I want to start with the Tennessee Center for Rural Innovation and the Rural Reimagined Grand Challenge that you help lead. And we've talked about this on the podcast before with other guests. So it's making impact in so many ways. When people zoom out and look at all the many projects and efforts that Tennessee Tech is involved in, Rural Reimagined is always at the top of the list. This is a great program. Now, for our listeners who don't know, give us the Rural Reimagined elevator pitch. You know, if somebody goes, what is Rural Reimagined? Why is this work so important to our region? And more than that, what is it?
So it really all started in 2017 when we received the Economic Development Administration grant to start the Center for Rural Innovation. And we started working in rural communities around the Upper Cumberland with small business assistance. We started doing our tourism projects. So around the same time, President Oldham charged the faculty and staff at Tech with coming up with a grand challenge, which is using the university assets and resources to tackle one problem and do it in a way that's both replicable and scalable other universities and other communities. Since we were already working on rural, it seemed like a natural fit. And again, around the same time, Governor Bill Lee put out his first executive order, which was to charge every department in the state government with coming up with a way to tackle rural issues. So it all just kind of combined in a really great way for us to be able to use all the incredible students, faculty, resources, research, administrative actions to help tackle rural issues. And with us specifically, we focused on business, but now it's grown throughout the university where we're doing these electric vehicle research. There's a lot going on with like the water center and STEM activities and healthcare. So it's really prevalent across the whole university, different departments working to try and solve rural issues.
You know, Andrea, it's powerful to hear you talk about the impact of Rural Reimagined, but the good news is we don't have to just take your word for it because you and your colleagues have continued to earn recognition and validation across the state for your work. In fact, just last week, your team, I know, received the Southeast Tourism Society's Shining Example Partnership Award. And I loved what you said on social media about it. You said, I'm quoting you, "While I always say I don't need recognition, I am proud of the work our staff and students do to create beautiful brands and help tell community stories." So tell us more about that award. What exactly was it for, and how did it feel to see that kind of recognition for, as you said, not just you, but your team and our university?
So Southeast Tourism Society is an organization. I went through their marketing college to become a certified travel marketing professional, which helps with as we're doing these branding projects and working in tourism related businesses. I also serve on the board for this organization. So for me to be recognized by them for the work we're doing is just, it's an organization I cannot speak highly enough of. And because of the work we do, so we partner directly with our state Department of Tourist Development, as well as our regional tourism associations. So Upper Cumberland Tourism Association, South Central Tennessee Tourism Association, and then all the different communities we work through with statewide, Jackson County, Monterey, Granger County. We're working in McNairy County. And we really do consider it a partnership with those communities because we try to make sure when we go in and do a branding workshop, it doesn't sound like Tennessee Tech's coming in to give them all the answers. We're just there to facilitate and help them figure out what the story of their community is and then how to tell it. And then again, measure the economic impact because as State Commissioner Zell loves to say, tourism is real money. It's real economic development, and it is low-hanging fruit for somewhere like Tennessee, where we have the most incredible music, natural resources, and some of the best food in the entire world, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, if you ever get tired of the Rural Reimagined route, Andrea, there's always a job for you over here at the Visitors Bureau. That was everything that we say every single day. And our new tourism numbers came out, and Putnam County alone pulls in $183 million in direct visitor spending. So when you say that Commissioner Ezell says that tourism is real money, it is real money. It's tangible data that impacts our community in a big way. And we're saving taxpayers, we're saving Putnam County residents $581 a year on their property taxes. So when you turn that into that real dollar amount, it really rings true for the residents here of why we do what we do. And I know that with you, I've seen the impact of what y'all have done for small businesses. And imagine being a small business and you have spent all this money into a new space and you've renovated and you have your inventory and you have your staff, and you oftentimes, like, marketing is the important part of promoting your business once you've done all that. But sometimes the well has run dry until you get your sea legs under you. And so we've heard the stories of how what you guys have done for so many small businesses and startups and all of that just needed to kind of have a little bit of help to be able to get started in the right direction. And it's been really impactful. But speaking of multi impact, you are multi talented. So I know that on top of all your work in tourism and economic development, you also nurture another passion of yours, which is photography. And we've worked directly together with the Nature Spotlight article for Cookeville Lifestyles. You've done multiple other projects there. You've also been featured in local exhibits and galleries, and you were even on display for a month at CPAC earlier this year. So talk to me a little bit about what that journey has been like for you and turning that from maybe a hobby into a business.
So I have loved photography since I learned on manual SLR cameras. My dad's old Minoltas from the 1970s. I learned film. I learned black and white, how to develop. I did that in early 2000s. And then, life, working, getting, building up the career, I kind of fell away from it until I moved to Cookeville. And I'd always loved to take pictures, but it really wasn't a focus. But when I moved to Cookeville, I actually was like going through a really rough, like personal and professional, just a really, really bad season for me. And I wasn't working. And so I didn't have money to do anything, and I didn't have a job yet, and I didn't have any friends here except for my sister, but I had a car and I had some hiking boots. So I started exploring, and as I was doing that, I like renewed my love of photography. I was taking pictures of every hike, and part of it was like it was a very healing journey for me because I was discovering all these natural places and remembering like that's so much of who I am that I had lost over the last several years. And I was just, doing it for fun. And then after a couple years, one of the first small business clients I helped actually, Emily Newman, who's a painter in town, who I had admired for years after seeing her at Art Prowl and things like that. We became friends. And one day she just commented on one of my Instagram posts and she's like, so when are you going to start selling these? And I was like, what? People don't want to buy my things. I'm taking them with my phone. I'm not doing anything special. And she was like, no, I think you should try it. So I tried it. I started printing out some work, and all of a sudden people were finding me at Made Here Market and Art Prowl. And I started printing out calendars that I do every year. I saved up enough to buy an actual camera, and then that's since been replaced by a newer, better camera. And it's been a really fun journey because I've learned so many new things. I've met all these people in the art world who are all incredible, and I've had a little fun playing around with different products. Like I started making jewelry from my photography. I've done calendars for years, but last year And of course, again, this year I've started doing demotivational calendars. Y'all said I'm Leslie Knope, like I'm super positive. And so me trying to come up with things to put in this, like, I forget what one of the ones is, but like, take a deep breath. Okay, now you're ready to panic. Like, it's those things that we all have in our head, but it's not necessarily the things we say. And even the Leslie Nopes of the world, we get anxiety too. So sometimes putting it out there helps with it.
What I love about the moral of this story, which goes a little deeper, is the fact that I think everyone can relate to having that transition season in your life where everything has kind of been flipped upside down, and you feel a little off your game, you feel a little uneasy about your future, you don't know where your path is about to lead you, and you took that time to take a breath and take a minute and make it productive. And I think that's something that all of us could take away from what you've said, because it opened up a new journey for you, not even really accidentally, but it feels accidental at the time. But you're making because a lot of people could sit home and stay in their pajamas and binge watch TV and cry because they feel uncertain about, when you move to a new place and you don't have friends yet and you haven't developed those social networks of people. I think that's beautiful, that it doesn't mean that's not going to happen. It just takes a minute, and you found time to spend productive time with yourself, growing a new set of skills. And also, I think that helps you get to know yourself a little better and helps other people get to know you later. I just think that's a beautiful story. I love what you did with that vulnerable time. Everybody's been there. Everybody's had that time, and what you do with it is obviously important.
Thank you, and I agree. But don't get me wrong, I spent a lot of time rewatching Grey's Anatomy and crying into Ben and Jerry's. So it was not all productive.
That's okay.
There
That's
was
part of your journey. That makes you relatable in another way.
I was a hot mess express for a while.
All been there.
Well, Andrea, I'm proud to be proof, along with a lot of other people in Cookeville, that people do want to buy your photography work, because I've got one of your prints hanging up in my office. So I just love seeing the beautiful scenery that you capture here in the Upper Cumberland. I want to ask you about another project that you've had your hands in. Shan and I have been at this podcast thing for over a year now. I think this is episode 33 that we're recording today. It's been a lot of fun, but you really are the expert here, because you were the longtime radio host of the weekly arts show, The Scene, on Light Rock 95.9 here in town. Tell us more about that gig. How did it come about? What were some of your favorite interviews? And then how did you decide to ultimately pass the baton?
Well, so I mentioned Emily Newman before. She's an artist in town. She actually had been doing that show, and she did it for about 2 years. And then she called me one day and she's like, "Hey, I've got an idea for you." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." Shoot. And she's like, "I need to give up the scene. They asked me if I had any ideas for a host, and I suggest you do." And I was like, "Oh, cool. So I talk a lot already. You mean I can get paid for it?" Uh, so I went in, I did like a little test run. They had me interview someone. I picked my friend Spooka, who is actually currently through the end of September displayed in the Joan Derryberry Gallery in the University Center. And she's an incredible artist. And I thought, like, this is a good one because we're friends and I can get my feet wet and just like have a conversation with someone and see how it goes. And it just felt incredibly natural to me. Other than the parts where, and I don't know if y'all have this issue, but like when you're doing your intro, or like if you're gonna take a break or something, like sometimes my mind just blanks and I'm like, who am I talking to? Who am I? What do I do? What channel is this? So that was a little difficult, but just talking to people and asking questions, that's so much of what I do anyway. Like I'm meeting with small business owners and community leaders and stuff constantly. So talking to people is easy, and doing it on the radio is fine. and I was getting paid for it, so I loved it. And I just got to hear so many really cool stories from so many really cool people. Kim Frick Welker, who works for Leisure Services, was one of my favorite interviews because she's just such an interesting person and she's got such a great story. And she's just like a lovely human being. Who else have I really enjoyed interviewing? Um, God, there's so many. When Prescott South Middle School was doing The Little Mermaid Junior for their show, I actually interviewed several of the cast members at one time, which was crazy. I had to do, because you only have a certain amount of mics, so we could only have, I think, 4 people in the room at a time. So I did 3 sets of all of those actors and actresses, and they were all incredible. And these kids are so talented and they were so excited. So that was really fun. I did the cast of Steel Magnolias a couple years ago when they were performing at CPAC, and it was just so great. We talked to the director, we talked to the production design, stage design, and then of course the main actresses from it. And we laughed so much. I think I walked out of that interview with like my stomach just hurt because I laughed the entire time. So there's a lot that stick out, and I loved doing it, but at one point, I started working on my master's degree and I have all this work travel and I'm doing 915 different things at a time. And I had to give up something. And that was the thing that was the easiest to give up without losing too much. And so ended up passing the show on to Laura Holloway, who was running at the time the Storyteller House. And she used to do the improv shows. And I knew she would be a great person for it because if you can do improv, you can be on a radio. So really, it's just learning how to talk. And when you screw something up, just ignoring it because no one else is going to know. And making sure you make your guests feel comfortable, because I talk to a lot of very introverted people, artists as a whole, typically, generally tend to be a little more introverted. And I obviously am very much not. So I had to kind of walk that line between like making them comfortable without being overly like, hey, oh my God, I love everybody.
I can see that would be in your wheelhouse of you seem so shy and all, Andrea. Now, finally, we're nearing the end of our episode with you. So we like to end each interview with the same question. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
What is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
That is honestly like the easiest question. It brought me back to life. It took me from a place where I was just like so lost professionally, personally, academically. I had given up on school. I had been working a temp job basically that I just hated. And I did not know where I was headed and took a chance. Applied for pretty much everything I felt remotely qualified for at Tech. Because I was like, if I can just get in at Tech, everyone who works here, like, it's a good job, it's steady. Like, I wasn't thinking I'm going to find my career, I'm going to find my dream job. I was thinking I can get a steady paycheck and not have to worry about it. I interviewed for a financial analyst position that I would have been okay at, but I would have hated everything because I am not a numbers details person.
You're too for that.
And did not end up getting the job because they didn't think I had the right experience, which was absolutely true. Like 100% true. But the VP liked me. The people who interviewed me liked me. And they called me in. I talked to the vice president, Dr. Bharat Soni at the time, and he said, I have this new grant that's starting called the Center for Rural Innovation. And I want you to work with the director. I want you to assist him. And I was like, okay, cool. Met with Michael in the middle of a snowstorm at a coffee shop in Livingston. We got along immediately, which is not surprising. We're basically the same person, and started working. Thought I was going to be kind of like an administrative assistant type role. First day on the job, took like pages and pages and pages of notes. And then he was like, "You don't need to do that. You're not my assistant. You're coordinating this. We're running this. We're doing this together." Uh, Worked as a temp for a year, got hired as the rural outreach coordinator, did that for a few years, and then last summer was promoted to assistant director. And I have found my passion. I love to mentor students. I love to work with communities. I get to travel all around the state and help people and see the things I'm doing change lives, and see how I impact students change lives. And I get feedback from students after they graduate, like, "Thank you for believing in me because you helped me get this job. You helped me leave this relationship because of the advice you've given me." Like, I never imagined I could be that person. I wanted to be Leslie Knope, but I didn't know how to. And with this job, I get to be Leslie Knope. I get to live my dream. So tech has changed my life in so many immeasurable ways, but the biggest is it gave me direction when I had none.
Well, Andrea, we are blessed to have you across our region and the impact that you're making every single day. Thank you so much for being our guest today on College Town Talk.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
How great are those two? Oh my goodness. Thanks to Dr. Harry Ingle and Andrea Kruszka for being our guests today on College Town Talk.
And thanks to all of you for listening. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and share this podcast with your friends. It all helps to spread the word about the great things happening right here in Cookeville.
We'll see you next week for more conversations with the people who make Cookeville, Tennessee's college town.
College Town Talk is presented by Tennessee Tech University in partnership with the Cookeville Putnam County Visitors Bureau. Your hosts are Jonathan Frank and Shan Stout, and original music is performed by Andrew Buckner. Visit us online at tntech.edu/collegetowntalk.